Hello, my presentation I will be giving today is on Amelia Lanyer, born 1569 and passed away in 1645, and she is one of the first women in England to assert herself as a professional poet. Amelia's life family. She was born in 1569 in Bishopsgate, London. Bishopsgate was one of the eastern gates in London's former defensive wall. The gate's name is traditionally attributed to Erconwald, who was Bishop of London in the 17th century. It was first built in Roman times and marked the beginning of Ermine Street, the ancient road running from London to York. So Amelia was baptized, Amelia Bassano, at the parish church of St. Botolph, Bishopsgate, on the 27th of January, 1569. Her family, Baptiste Bassano, was a Venetian-born musician at the court of Queen Elizabeth. Her mother was Margaret Johnson, born 1545 to 1550, who was possibly an aunt of the court composer Robert Johnson. It has been suggested and disputed that Lanyer's family was Jewish or partly Jewish. Amelia then served in the household of Susan Bertie, Countess of Kent. There she received an education until the age of 12. When the Countess left Elizabeth's London court at the age of 18, Amelia became the mistress of 62-year-old Henry Carey Lord Hudson, cousin and Lord Chamberlain to Queen Elizabeth. When she became pregnant, her marriage to Alfonso Lanyer was arranged. Amelia gave birth to a son, Henry, and a daughter who died in infancy. Amelia's husband then died in 1613, 2 years after the publication of her book, The Salve de Rex Judarum. In 1617, Lanyer lived in poverty and became one of the earliest women in England to own and operate a school established in the wealthy suburbs of St. Giles in the Field, which closed in 1620. Some of Amelia's works to highlight: she was a trailblazing poet of the England Renaissance and was one of the first women in England to publish her original literary compositions, allowing to identify herself as a professional poet. Amelia had a substantial volume of poetry designed to be printed and to attract patronage. Her book, and only book, The Salve des Rex Judarum, printed in 1611, was the first volume of English poetry that appeared with the female author's name on its title page, only book that was entered into the Stationer's Register on the 2nd of October, 1610, and published in 1611, the same year as King James' version of the Bible. Amelia was the first woman poet in England who sought status as a professional writer. Her book of poems dedicated entirely to women patrons. It offers a long poem on Christ's Passion, told entirely from a woman's point of view, as well as the first country house poem published in England. It also has been proposed that Lanyer is the infamous cruel mistress of Shakespeare's so-called Dark Lady sonnets, in sonnets 127 to 154. There is reasonable cause for such speculation. Lanyer was Jew of Italian descent, and she might have come in contact with Shakespeare through her family of court musicians. There's also circumstantial evidence for Shakespeare knowing her with the name Emilia, in version spelled E Amilia, and versions of her maiden name, Bassano, reoccurring throughout Shakespeare canon. Some of her influence, Lanyer claims that her full conversion to Christ resulted from the influence of her main dedicatee, the Countess Dowager of Cumberland, and other women had a godly influence on her, including the Countess Dowager of Kent, in whose household she had resided as an unprecedented young woman. So one of the first poems I'll read is The Tears of the Daughter of Jerusalem, for examples of how her inspiration came from the Bible and the Passion of Christ. So The Tears of the Daughters of Jerusalem by Amilia Lanyer. Thrice happy women that obtain such grace from him whose worth the world could not contain, immediately to turn about his face, as not remembering his great grief and pain, to comfort you whose tears proved forth space on floors blanks like showers of April's rain. Your cries enforced mercy, grace, and love for him who greatest princess would not move, to speak one word, nor once to lift his eyes unto proud Pilate, nor Herod king, by all the questions they would devise, could make him answer no manner of thing. Yet these poor women, by their piteous cries, did move their Lord, their love, and their King, to take compassion, turn about and speak to them whose hearts were ready to break. Most blessed daughters of Jerusalem, who found such favor in your Saviour's sight, to turn his face when you did pity him. Your tearful eyes beheld his cries, more bright your faith and love unto such grace did climb, to have reflection from his heavenly light, your eagle's eyes did gaze against his sun. Your hearts did think he dead, the world were done. When spiteful men with torments did oppress thy afflicted body of this innocent dove, poor women seeing how much they did transgress, by tears, by sighs, by cries, entreat, nay, prove what may be done among the thickest press, they labor still these tyrants' heart to move. In pity and compassion, to forbear their whipping, spurring, tearings of his hair, but all in vain, their malice hath no end, their hearts more hard than flint or marble stone. Now to his grief, his greatness they attend, where he, God knows, had rather be alone. There are his guard, yet seek all means to offend. Well may he grieve, well may he sigh and groan under the burden of a heavy cross. He faintly goes to make their gain his loss. So I didn't find much about that poem, but in the next one, so I have to all virtuous women or ladies in general. A little bit about this poem is Amilia Lanyer dedicated it to all the females that endorse decency, using Christ as the bridegroom, and the female readers as brides of Christ. The opening stanza describes the wedding garments. Virtuous women should adorn themselves with symbolism as they prepare to read Lanyer's poem. It says, put on your wedding garments, every one. The bridegroom stays to entertain you all. Let virtue be your guide. So she initiates them in their wedding apparel to portray their preparedness for the bridegroom. Lanyer instructs the virtuous ladies, but fill your lamps with oil of burning zeal, that to your faith he may his truth reveal. This instruction is a religious allusion that correlates to the biblical parables of the virgins and awaited the bridegroom Jesus with their lamps. The oil characterizes conviction with contributes to the virtues being noticeable. Conversely, the oils would trigger the expiry of their devotion, which would devalue their virtues. So I have the poem here. It's To All the Virtuous Ladies in General by Amelia Lanyer. Each blessed lady that in virtue spends your prettiest time to beautify your souls, come wait on him whom winged fame attends, and in her hand the brook where she enrolls her high desert that majesty commands. Let this fair queen not attend be when in my glasses she deigns herself to see. Put on your wedding garments, every one. The bridegroom stays to entertain you all. Let virtue be your guide, for she alone can lead you right, that you can never fall. And make no stay, for fear he should be gone. But fill your lamps with oil of burning zeal, that your faith he may his truth reveal. The robes that Christ wore before his death, let all your robes be purple, scarlet, white. Those perfect colors purest virtue wore, come decked with lilies that did so delight to be preferred in beauty, fair before wise Solomon in all his glory delight, whose royal robes did no such pleasure yield, as did the beauteous lily of the field. In token of constancy, adorn your temples with fair Daphne's crown. The never-changing laurel awaits green. Let constant hope all worldly pleasure drown. In wise Minerva's paths be always seen. Or with bright Cynthia, though fair Venus frown, with Aesop cross the posts of every door, where sense would riot, making virtue poor. And let the Muses your compassions be, those sacred sisters that on Pallas wait, whose virtues with the purest minds agree, whose godly labors do avoid the bait of worldly pleasures, lining awaits free from sword, from violence, and from ill report. To those 9 worthies all fair minds resort. Anoint your hair with Aaron's pratis oil, and bring your palms of victory in your hands, to overcome all thoughts that would defile the earthly circuit of your soul's fair lands. Let no dim shadows your clear eyes beguile. Sweet odors, myrrh, gum, aloes, frankincense, present that king who did for your offense. Behold bright Titans, shining chariot stays, all decked with flowers of freshest hue, attend on by age, hours, nights, and days, which alters not your beauty, but glues you much more and crowns you with eternal praise. This golden chariot wherein you must ride, let simple doves and subtle serpents guide. Come swifter than the motions of the sun, to be transfigured with our loving Lord. Lest glory and grace in your begun of heavenly riches make your greatest hoard. In Christ all honor, wealth, and beauties won, by whose perfections you appear more fair than Phoebus, if he sees times brighter were. God's holy angels will direct your doves, and bring your serpents to the fields of rest, where he doth stay and purchased all your loves in bloody torments. When he did oppressed, there shall you find him in those pleasant grooves of sweet Elysium by the well of life, whose crystal springs do purge from worldly strife. Thus may you fly from dull and sensual earth, whereof at first your bodies formed were, that new, regenerate, and in second birth your blessed souls may live without a fear, being immortal, subject to no death, but in the eyrie of heaven so highly placed, that others by your virtues may be graced. Where worthy ladies, I will leave you all, desiring you to grace his little brook. Yet some of you me thinks I hear to call me by my name and bid me better look, lest unawares I in an error fall, in general termins to place you with the rest, whom fame commends to be the very best. 'Tis truth I must confess, O noble fame, there are a number of honored by thee, of which some few thou didst recite by name, and while my muse they should remember be. Wishing some would their glorious trophies frame, which if I should presume to undertake, my tired hand for very fear would quake. Only by name I will bid some of those that in true honor's seat have long been placed, even such as thou hast chiefly chose, by whom my muse may be the better graced. Therefore, unwilling longer time to lose, I will invite some ladies that I know, but chiefly those as thou hast graced so. So, in the last influence, the examples, um, is Lanier's poem description of Cook Ham. It reveals her description for herself as Philomel, who is the maid of a classical legend, who was used and abused by a Roman lord. This matches Lanyard's experience as a young maid at the hands of an aged but all-powerful lord. But Philomel was escaped and got her revenge by the power of her writing. So, in this poem, the description of Cook Ham by Amilia Lanyard is a little bit longer. It says, "Farewell, sweet Cook Ham, where I first obtained grace, from that grace where perfect grace remained, and where the muses gave their full consent, I should have power their virtuous to content, where princely Pallas willed me to indite the sacred story of soul's delight. Farewell, sweet place, where virtue then did rest, and all delights in harbour her breast. Never shall my sad eyes again behold those pleasures which my thoughts did then unfold. Yet you, great lady, mistress of that place, from whose desires did spring his woke of grace, vouchsafe to her to think upon those pleasures past as fleeting worldly loves that could not last, or as dim shadows of celestial pleasures, which are desire above all earthly treasures. Oh, how he thought against you then there came, each part did seem some new delight to fame. The house received all ornaments to grace it, and would endure no foulishness to deface it. The walks put on their summer clothes, and all the things else did hold like similes. The trees with leaves, with fruits, and with flowers, clad embraced each other, seeming to be glad, turning themselves to beauteous canopies, to shade the bright sun from your brighter eyes. The crystal streams with silver-spangled grace. While by the glorious sun they were embraced, the little birds in chirping notes did sing, to entertain you, and that sweet spring, and Philomela with her sun-dry layers, both you and that delightful place did praise. Oh, how methought each plant, each flower, each tree, each set forth their beauties then to welcome thee. The very hills right humbly with descend when you tread upon them did intend. And as you set your feet, they still did rise, glad that they could receive so rich a prize. The gentle winds did take delight to be among those woods that were so graced by thee, and in sad murmur uttered pleasure's pleasing sound, that pleasure in that place might more abound. The swelling blanks delivered all their pride, when such a phoenix once they had beside. Each arbor, bank, each seat, each stately tree, thought themselves honored in supporting thee. The pretty birds would often come to attend thee, yet flies away for fear they should offend thee. The little creatures in the burrow by would come aboard to sport them in your eye, yet fearful of the bough in your fair hand, would run away when you did make a stand. Now let me come unto that stately tree, wherein such godly prospects you did see. That oak that did in height his fellows pass, as much as lofty trees low growing grass, whose beauteous stature fair exceed all. How often did you visit this fair tree, which seeing joyful in receiving thee, would like a palm tree spread his arms abroad, desirous that you there should make abode, whose fair green leaves much light commonly veil. Defend Phoebus when he would assail, whose pleasing boughs did yield a cool fresh air. Loying his happiness when you were there, where being seated you might plainly see hills, valleys, and woods, as if on bended knee they had appeared your honor to salute, or to prefer some strange unlooked for suit, all interlaced with brooks and crystal springs, a prospect fit to please the eyes of kings. And 13 shires appeared all in your sight. Europe could not afford much more delight. What was there then but gaze, you all content, while you the time in meditation spent, of their creatures' power, which there you saw, to all his creatures held in perfect law, and in their beauties did you plain describe his beauty, wisdom, grace, love, majesty. In these sweet woods, how often did you walk with Christ and his apostles here to talk, placing his holy right in some fair tree, to meditate what you therein did see. With Moses you did mount his holy hill, to know his pleasure and perform his will. With lovely David did you often sing his holy hymns to heaven's eternal King. And in sweet musk did your soul delight, to sound his praises morning, noon, and night. With blessed Joseph you did often feed your pinned brethren when they stood in need. And that sweet lady, sprung from Clifford's race, of noble Bedford's blood fair stream of grace, to honourable Dorset now empowers, whose fair breast true virtue then was housed. Oh, what delight did my weak spirits find in those pure parts of her well-famed mind, and yet grieve me that I cannot be near unto her whose virtues did agree with those fair ornaments of outward beauty, which did enforce from all both love and duty. Unconstant fortune, with thou art most to blame, whose cast verses down into so low a fame, where our great friends we cannot daily see, so great a difference is there in degree. Many are placed in those orbs of state, partners in honor so ordained by fate, near in show, yet father of love in which the lowest always are above. But whither am I carried in conceit, my wit too weak to consider of the great. Why not, although we are but born on earth, we may behold the heavens, despising death, and loving heavens that is so fair above, may in the end vouchsafe versus entire love. Therefore, sweet memory, does thou retain those pleasures past which will not turn again. Remember beauteous Dorset's former sport, so fair from being touched by ill reports, wherein myself did awaits bear a part, while rendered love presented my true heart. Those recreations let me bear in mind, which her sweet youth and noble thoughts did find, whereof deprived I evermore must grieve, hating blind fortune careless to relieve. And you, sweet cook Ham, whom these ladies leave, I now must tell the grief you did conceive at their departure when they went away. How everything retained a sad dismay, may long before, when once an inkling came, methought each thing did unto sorrow fame, the trees that were so glorious in their view. Forsook both flowers and fruit, when once they knew of your depart, their very leaves did wither, changing their colors as they grew together. But when they saw this had no power to stay you, they often wept through speechlessness, could not pray you, letting their tears in their fair bosoms fall, as if they said, why will ye leave us all? This being vain, they cast their leaves away, hoping that pity would have made you stay. Their frozen tops, like ages, hairs, shows their disaster languishing in fears, as swarthy yield brine all overspread, their dying bodies half alive, half dead. But your occasions called you so away, that nothing there had power to make you stay. Yet did I see a noble grateful mind, requiting each according to their kind, forgetting not to turn and take your leave of these sad creatures, powerless to receive your favor when with grief you did depart, placing their former pleasures in your heart, giving great charge to noble memory, there to preserve their love continually, but especially the love of that fair tree, that first and last you did safe to see, in which it pleased you oft to take the air, with noble Dorset, then a virgin fair, where many a learned book was read and stand, you did repeat the pleasures which had passed. Seeming to grieve, they could no longer last, and with a chaste yet loving kiss took leave, of which sweet kiss I did soon bereave. Scoring and senseless creature should possess so rare a favor, so great happiness. No other kiss it could receive from me, for fear glue back what it took of thee. So I, ingrateful creature, did deceive it, of which you safe in love to leave it. And though it oft had given me much content, yet this great wrong I never could repent, but of the happiness made it most forlorn, to shew that nothing's free from fortune's scorn, while all the rest with this most beauteous tree made their sad consort sorrow's harmony. The flowers that on the banks and walks did grow, crept in the ground, the grass did weep for woe. The winds and waters seemed to chide together, because you went away they knew not whither. And those sweet brooks and ran so fair and clear, with grief and trouble wrinkled did appear. Those pretty birds that wanted were to sing, now neither sing nor chirp nor verse their wing. But when their tender feet on some bare spray warble forth sorrow and their own dismay, fair Philomela leaves her mournful ditty. Each arbor, bank, each seat, each stately tree looks bare and desolate now for want of thee. Turning green tresses into frosty gray, while in cold grief they wither all away. The sun grew weak, his beams no comfort gave, while all green things did make the earth their grave. Each barrier, each bramble, when you went away, caught fast her close, thinking to make you stay. Delightful echo wanted to reply to our last words, did now for sorrow die. The house cast off each garment that might grace it, putting on dust and cobwebs to deface it. All desolation then there did appear, when you were going whom they held so dear. This last farewell to cooked ham, here I go. When I am dead, thy name in this may live, wherein I have performed her noble haste, whose virtues lodged in my unworthy breast, and ever shall, so long as life remains, trying my heart to her by those rich chains. So that one was a little bit longer, but a little bit to the meanings of Lanier's work. The poetry was working toward reversing the images of women typically portrayed in the Bible, specifically that women should be subservient to men. She was advocating the importance of knowledge of both the spiritual and material worlds in connection with women. She argues that women must focus on the material world and their importance in it to supplement her life in the spiritual world, rather than focusing solely on the spiritual. This argument stems from Lanier's desire to raise women up to the same level as men. Lanyer attempts to convey the message to our audience that men are not the only important beings in the material world, but that women belong there as well. So, Lanyard's death, she died in 1645 at the age of 76, having seen the reigns of three different English monarchs, Elizabeth I, Charles I, and James I, during her lifetime. Contemporary scholarships on Lanyard's highlights her legacy as an important early modern poet and pioneer of English feminist writing.